How's it going, Sam?
Uh, I mean, not great, but it's not me who matters here. So
I want to ask you this question. I don't know why my phone is like jerking around now. Want to ask you this question. Did you not see that? How long? When did you finally realize that? Because for me personally, if I saw there was like $8 billion, like there was a $8 billion hole in my sheet, I would notice that right away. When did you finally notice that?
so part of the problem was that when you looked at narrowly at FTX's finances, um, FTX's finances treated customer positions just as customer positions, and um, not as a corporate balance or anything like that. And so it didn't appear straightforwardly as a hole in the sheet um, because of that. Now, obviously, we should have had some way of accounting that did do that, and that was obviously a mistake. Um, but looking through FTX's finances didn't show anything here. And I, you know, the point where, like, I think the first time that I had up like an actual full view of this was in the wake of the crash. I don't know if it's like the sixth or the seventh or it those days blur together a little bit, but it was during that period, and part of the problem here, and this was obviously not good that we got into this situation, was that you know I basically did not have at all detailed of an understanding of what user asset totals, customer position levels, margin, aggregate margin levels, um, or anything like that were on the platform. It wasn't a driver of revenue directly, and I mean, I guess that meant that I was not paying much attention to it, but obviously that was a big mistake. And obviously, for many reasons, I should have been paying attention to it because, from a risk perspective um, uh, and just from understanding what was going on deeply perspective, it was important.
So it became the second largest exchange, obviously Binance being number one, and you're running this entire exchange without a CFO. Because everything that you state in all these interviews is that you didn't know. How long didn't you know about anything that was going on in FTX? Like, from a standpoint, you're the CEO, and every single interview, every single space, you come in and you say you just didn't know. So did it start from the beginning? Did it just, 2 months after the fact? When did this begin? The whole I don't know.
Sorry, when did
When did you
I?
like? Because you're the CEO of FTX,
Right?
correct? And
Yeah.
every single interview that you do with, whether it's here or did interviews on every single interview that I listen into, you don't know.
hmm
So when did the I don't know begin? Did it begin when you first opened up the company, 5 months into it? I mean, at some point you have to
I
know
see.
what's happening with your company. And every single interview is I don't know, and I just want to make the people whole. Well, why don't you have a CFO at the company? Why wasn't there
S-
somebody looking over, you know, literally
Well,
looking over the finances, looking over the money? Like there should have been a report handed to you every single month, so you
so
knew.
we got audited financials each year, audited by an external accounting firm. We had an accounting team. We had a finances team who was working on that and who got those. And I did look at the audited financials when they came out each year. And I looked at drafts of them before they came out. We were doing finances from some perspective. But and I'm not using this as to try and excuse what happened because it's really bad what happened. I'm just trying to answer the question you're asking about like how why wasn't that something that well, why wouldn't that show up on financials? The answer is it didn't because the financials were FTX's corporate financials, not risk analyses of users' positions on FTX.
So you didn't
And
get
to use
no data. You didn't get no data from anywhere within your company showing you up to date. I just, to me, it's like you keep saying I don't know. You have, as a CEO, you have to know everything. It's critical for you to know everything about your company. Like, did the investors that invested into your company, did they know?
I don't know that anyone did, and I agree that it is important and that it's really bad that that didn't happen. Like, that's absolutely true, and I really wish I had known, and I should have. And it was a huge lapse that I mean, it was a huge. It was really bad that I got disconnected enough from what was going on that I didn't know. Um, but all I can say is it wasn't on the financials because the financials weren't looking at customer positions; they were looking at corporate cash, and at corporate revenue and expenses, and that was also what we talked about with investors. That's what they were looking at as well. Um, I
So hold
it,
on. If you didn't know anything about FTX, how did people or VCs, how did they go into, giving you guys money at FTX? Did they just write you out a blank check, or were they provided with any sort of material to go ahead and look over the company's like
so
health?
so I'm not sure why you're saying you didn't know anything about FTX. Like, there were a lot of
No,
things
I'm
that
just SBF. I'm
did
being
know about
condescending.
FTX.
I'm going based on your words. So I'm going based on
But
you didn't
there are a
know.
lot of
So
things that I did. But you just said I didn't know anything about my own
no, no, no,
company
no.
about
I
FTX.
I
Yeah,
mean,
you
like,
actually just literally did. You
Sam,
literally did.
I'm just asking you. I'm not getting confrontational. I'm just asking you, if you didn't know this stuff, how did these venture capitalists know anything? That's really my question.
How did they know anything? Because there were a lot of things that we did talk about. There were a lot of details of the company we did talk about that we did go over, which were part of how I had been thinking about, part of what they looked at as well. This wasn't one of them. And I feel really bad that this wasn't one of them. But the answer to your direct question is that the premise is wrong because there were a lot of things that they did know and that I did know. But obviously, there were really important things that weren't known. And like I'm not trying to say that wasn't the case. I'm not, or that it didn't need to be the case. Like I screwed up. Um, but there is a lot to talk out. There's a lot to talk about outside of the risk of customer positions on FTX, and it wasn't a big driver of revenue, and so it didn't factor into the modeling or into the you know into the financials, into the revenue, into the volume growth, and I that meant that it sort of actually didn't appear on as far as I can remember the discussions that we had.